from the campus of Westfield State University. This is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Noble Hospital, a brand new name for a Westfield institution which is improving the health of our community every day with quality and compassion. Noble Hospital and Bay State Health, better together.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:02. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM, radio for the Westfield masses. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I'm in studio this morning with the chairman of the board, producer Pete Coles. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning.
It's actually Peter O'Coles because Peter is sporting his bright Kelly green hair in preparation for the St. Baldrick's Foundation head shave, which is coming up Sunday. Is that correct?
Yep. Sunday
in
at the
Amherst. Yep. So, Pete, tell us, for those who don't know, a little bit about St. Baldrick's and why you did what you did.
So it is a charity that does direct cancer research grants for children's cancer researchers around the country. And it was, as I recall reading the website, it was started by a couple of golfing buddies in Texas that wanted to find out a way to start a charity for something like this. And they decided the only thing that they could do properly was shave their heads. So
there you go.
So they started a charity, and by doing a little bit of research, it does have a very low overhead.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I look for in a charity, and they do a lot of grants. And I know probably about 7 or 8 years ago now, they did a direct for a Bay State researcher, so
nice.
Bay State Health. So
nice.
So they do grants all over the country for people who do. People submit their, just like any other granting organization.
Yep.
They submit their requests, and they do grants of millions of dollars a year. So
right. And Pete, when you say low overhead, just so that listeners have an understanding, because I think a lot of people aren't aware that oftentimes charities, there is some overhead involved. So in other words, if they hire people to, say solicit over the phone or whatever, you have to pay those people. So if I'm donating $100 to this charity, not all $100 is going actually to the charity. Some has to go to the overhead.
Yeah, to pay to keep the lights on.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever office you have.
Yeah. So, and what you're saying is you want some charity where the overhead is as low as possible. So the vast percentage of that money is going to
for what you want it to go.
Exactly.
Correct.
The actual charity.
Yep.
So Pete's tradition. How long have you been doing this?
This will be my 11th or 12th year doing the shaving part.
Okay.
But I think it's like 6 years maybe?
For the color?
For the coloring. Yeah. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I decided to color my hair just to color it.
Yeah.
And then I learned from that, and I learned that the fact that you have to do it about a week ahead of time so you can grow it out a little bit so you don't have colored tips, because the first year I did it the 2 days before, and I had like whatever color it was.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So,
right.
So I decided, well, if I'm going to have it for a period of time, I might as well make that part of the fundraiser.
Yeah.
And which is what I did. So I auction off a week of my head being a certain color to the highest bidder.
Right.
And usually that's you.
Well, because my strategy, just so that, is that I hold off until the last minute, and then I kind of figure out where's the high bid and then see if I can go a little higher than that. So, yeah, so this year it was, I was thinking, we were talking about this when Pete came over to the senior center this week to show me on Monday the hair color. But, I usually there's usually a story behind my color. So we've done, Alzheimer's awareness. We've done purple one year, and we did blue for autism awareness one year. One year you wanted to do fire and ice. So I decided I'm going to let you sort of steered the ship on that one.
And that one came out really good.
Yeah. Well, I think they've all looked really awesome. But this year, this was in honor of my mother-in-law, Gary's mom, who passed away a year ago, and we buried her actually on St. Patrick's Day. She was very, very Irish, Rita Agnes Scully. And so I decided we're going with the Irish theme this year. So we did Kelly Green, and I have to say the color is fantastic.
Thank my girlfriend Megan for that.
I know.
She was a trooper.
She did a phenomenal job. Couple coats, but you have to bleach it first, right?
Yeah, she never bleached hair before. She was worried that my hair was going to fall out.
Yeah, I'm
like, I've been through this. I kind of got the timing thing down.
Pete, you could. If you decide you want to switch gears here, you get into that hairdressing thing because you've got that whole bleaching thing down pat. But anyway, so that's coming up on.
I trust the professionals.
Sunday. There you go. So that's coming up Sunday. So what time is that up at the?
The event starts at noontime. It goes till about 2 or 3.
Good.
But the nice thing is up there at the hangar is it's such a big complex.
Yeah, lots of room.
It was a former grocery store.
Yes.
And so you can do the shaving, but there's also a full arcade that they have the machines turned on during most of the time. There's music, there's raffles, you can have lunch there. So I kind of make an afternoon of it.
Nice.
When I go
Fun.
up there.
Excellent. So, well, congratulations on that. So next week.
Thank you for the donation.
You're very welcome.
And to everybody who's donated.
Yes, absolutely. And so next week we won't have green-haired Pete. We'll have no-haired Pete.
We'll have,
a little while.
Marine cut Pete.
Yeah, marine cut Pete. But then your hair grows fast.
Yeah.
I mean, within 2 or 3 weeks, it's going to be, heading back. So
right.
that was kind of cool. You know what? My days are blending into each other. I'm trying to remember. Okay, because we usually get into sort of what have we done since we've seen each other last.
Yeah. Well, it's been nuts.
They're so jam-packed. I can't.
I never got to watch the parade because Sunday I was still trying to recover from the cold that I had from the week before.
Yes.
And I just decided I was spending the day in.
Yeah.
I was going to go out because my cousins were having an after party. They're on the Holyoke Chicopee Parade Committee. Mm-hmm. They were having an after party. I was going to go to that, and I was going to watch the parade, and I ended up falling asleep.
Yeah.
Again, I fell back to sleep, which was probably good, and then I ended up watching the race in the afternoon, and that was it.
Yep.
I was done.
Yep. Yeah, I was just, this has just been super busy. I was at home on Saturday just trying to catch up with paying bills and my other thing, and this actually has to do with our shred day over at the senior center on April 27th. So I was going through our personal stuff. I mean, I hauled boxes of, old bills, utility bills, and, all this kind of stuff, and my little cheat sheet of paper saying how long do you need to keep any of this stuff. And I filled a pretty good sized box with stuff that I'm going to take to the shredding event. Because the one thing about the shredding event, which is sponsored by whatever it is, CSF, it goes to scholarships here in Westfield. And but, you have to start preparing. Here it is. So you have to start preparing for that. You don't want to do it the night before. It's like, oh my gosh, I want to throw together a box of all my stuff that has to be shredded. So I really spent a lot of time on Saturday going through that.
Right.
So just to make the announcement, so Shred Day this year, we don't sponsor it. We just provide the parking lot.
Yeah, you provide the space.
Right, we provide the space. So it's CSF Westfield Dollars for Scholars hosts a document Shred Day. This year it will be Saturday, April 27th from 9 to 12 or until the truck is full. They do this rain or shine. Please, no early birds. Don't start coming in at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, they got to set up their stuff.
They have to set up, and if you're in the way, that makes it really challenging. So it is in the far end of the senior center parking lot. Bring your documents to be shredded and recycled. It's $5 donation for every box that you bring. You have a limit of 3 boxes, but
you're more than welcome to donate more if you want to.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it's a great cause, and it just really helps us. I'm really on my no clutter kick again because it's the spring, and we have some stuff coming up in April at the senior center where I'm going to do my downsizing in place 2-part workshop again. So for those of you who missed it last year and you'd like to learn how to go through your stuff in a systematic, organized manner, we'll be doing that. And Leslie Lambert is going to be coming and doing a workshop on downsizing, thinking about it, retirement, the house is getting too big, I can't keep up with this, that kind of thing. So we'll be talking more about that over the next few weeks. But anyway, so that's that's what I did Saturday. And then on Sunday, I came to the senior center and I'm trying to do the same thing, just sort of going through old files. And Karen Noblet's been so good about it. She starts like right after the first of the year and she just plows through it because she has so much of all the Medicare stuff. So as soon as Medicare open enrollment is done, she starts trying to purge those old files, not the new ones that she just did, but the old ones. So she set a great example. So I created a context for it. I wheeled a big table outside of my office and brought down all my old file boxes, and we'll start going through those. So all in preparation for Shred Day. All right. So, it is Wednesday, March 20th, so let's do at least one birthday. We have to do this first birthday because almost all my music is based on the birthday of William Hurt. Actor William Hurt is 69 years old today. He was born March 20th, 1950 in Washington, D.C., and I have to tell you, he has an impressive resume. When I really started looking at the work that he's done, William Hurt started out as a stage actor, first appearing in a regional Shakespearean festival. In 1981, he co-starred opposite Kathleen Turner in the film Body Heat, which helped make both of them stars. In 1983, Hurt appeared in the popular ensemble dramedy comedy The Big Chill. The movie follows a group of former college friends who reunite for a funeral. The cast also includes Tom Berenger, Glenn Close, Jeff Goldblum, and Kevin Kline. In that movie, it's so funny because I have two older brothers. My oldest brother, Mike, is 9 years older than I am, and Dave is 4. And every time Mike and his friends, his college friends, used to get together, which they still do. They're 70 years old now, and they still periodically get together. Every time they do, Dave refers to it as the Big Chill. It's just the college kids getting together. But the thing that I loved the most about that movie was the music.
Yeah.
So this morning, almost all the music is from The Big Chill, with the exception of just a couple things. 2 years later, Hurt gave one of the most remarkable performances of his career in The Kiss of the Spider Woman. In the film, he plays Louis, a homosexual drag queen who's imprisoned in a South American jail. He received rave reviews for his work on Kiss of the Spider Woman, and he won the 1986 Academy Award for Best Actor. Hurt's film career continued to thrive with a string of impressive performances. In 1986, he received another Academy Award nomination for his role as a teacher at a school for the deaf in Children of a Lesser God. His character in the film becomes involved with a woman who's deaf, and that was played by Marlee Matlin, who in fact is deaf. And he did an amazing job in that. And I had to learn sign language for that film, which, trust me, is not easy to learn because I've tried. The following year, Hurt starred in the drama Broadcast News with Holly Hunter.
That was the one that I liked.
Okay, and by the way, today is Holly Hunter's birthday as well, so we'll get to that later, which earned him another Oscar nomination, and he went on to give another great performance in The Accidental Tourist in 1988, starring alongside Gina Davis. So, really impressive. So happy 69th birthday to actor William Hurt. And the other thing that I just want to mention before we take our first break is that March 20th today, by the way, it's the first day of spring. So
yes,
just in case
this afternoon,
you want to know that. Yep, exactly. So why don't we do that one first? So it is the first day of spring, March 20th. This year in the Northern Hemisphere, the spring or vernal equinox falls on Wednesday, March 20th. It's not always on the same day. I didn't realize that. Sometimes it's on the 21st. It's all about the equinox. Mm-hmm. The equinox marks the day when day and night are the same lengths all over the world, and the word equinox literally means equal night in Latin. The spring equinox marks the change of the seasons, and as the northern hemisphere begins to tilt towards the sun, our days start to get longer and our nights shorter. Yay! Patrick Berry is super happy about that.
Yes, he is.
In the northern hemisphere, we enjoy the arrival of spring and the promise of warmer days. To our friends in the southern hemisphere, however, this marks the changing of their seasons to autumn. But for us, first day of spring. So happy about that. And March 20th today is National Kick Butts Day. Kick Butts Day is a national day of activism that empowers youth to stand out, speak up, and seize control against big tobacco. Today, Kick Butts organizers are expecting more than 1,000 events in schools and communities across the United States and even around the world. On Kick Butts Day, teachers, youth leaders, and health advocates organize events to raise awareness of the problem of tobacco use in their state or community, encourage youth to reject the tobacco industry's deceptive marketing and stay tobacco-free, and urge elected officials to take action to protect kids from tobacco. Kick Butts Day is organized by the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. The first Kick Butts Day was held in 1996. And soon we're going to have a Kick Vape Day because
might as well include it in.
That is an amazing, I think that is like an epidemic proportions, the vaping trend. So I think over the next couple of months, I'd really like to get somebody in here to kind of talk about that because that is really becoming problematic, especially at the high school level.
Oh, yeah.
But, all the way up. And now it's really interesting because over the last...
I know superintendents had their counselors on.
Did they?
Mm-hmm.
For that,
Kathy Sittler and the task force. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I was thinking about Kathy Sittler.
Yep.
I just
for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Huge problem. I was going to say something now. I forgot what I was going to say. Right out the window, but that's okay. All right. So happy National Kick Butts Day. Today we have a full slate today, Pete. We have Dr. Akinyele Lovelace, our resident primary care physician, will be joining us in a few minutes. We're going to play his theme song music and bring him in. And then second hour, we have two women from the Governor's Center. And they're going to talk a little bit. We have both the administrator, Melinda, and we have the social worker, Jen. They're going to talk about Governor's Center and what they do. But Governor's Center has forged a very interesting partnership with Forum House. So we're going to really get into also talking about some mental health issues. So we have lots to do today on this Wake Up Wednesday. We are going to start with Dr. Lovelace's theme. This is the Doobie Brothers. It's the doctor. I don't see him here yet, so we're hoping. Usually this brings him in. We'll see the light come on. So.
Underwriting support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce, the voice of business for the Greater Westfield communities. Informing, educating, advocating, the Chamber provides opportunities for members to make meaningful connections on local, regional, and state levels. For more information on the Chamber's many events, workshops, and programs, as well as the benefits of membership, visit westfieldbiz.org. The Chamber focuses on the most important economy, yours. We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646. Wednesday mornings start off right from 6 to 8 a.m. with Tina Gorman and Wake Up Wednesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University. This is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:22. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. It is Wednesday, March 20th. It's the first day of spring. It's National Kick Butts Day. So we got all kinds of things going on over here. And we are joined by, we talked about that.
That sounds rather violent. But
well, it's it's all about the youth anti-smoking movement.
Yes, butts.
That's
butts.
BUTTS.
Yes.
Hey. Yeah, there you go. There you go. The light bulb went off. A little early in the morning, but he's on board now. That voice you hear is Dr. Akinyele Lovelace, our resident primary care physician, and we have not had you in studio for a couple of months. You were a little under the weather yourself last month. Plus, we had an ice storm, so we decided, the gods have spoken, and so we're just going to do a best of back in February. So, but here we are. So, Dr. Lovelace, since I haven't really seen you since our Westfield Trivia Contest,
that was fantastic.
that was a fundraiser for the Friends of the Westfield Senior Center, and it was kind of in honor of Westfield's 350th, because I feel like everything we do at the Senior Center now is, somehow tied in with the 350th, and there's a lot of that going on in the city this year, which is kind of fun. But thank you for stepping in. We needed another celebrity host. And Dr. Lovelace stepped in and asked a round of questions. And, of course, we had both your lovely wife, Christina, and your two wonderful, I can't say enough about your daughters. Yeah. I love them. We had them as our runners. Yeah. So, and they did run because they had to do the, each round we had the questions and then we had to tally up the scores. So I said to the girls, and we had, they had like 12 tables or something like that. So I said, all right, you take those 6 and you take those. And they scattered around and, got the answer sheets and then ran them up to my tally people. But they're awesome.
And the best part about it was the ice cream sundae.
Yes, and then everybody went home with an ice cream sundae, girls included. That's
what makes the experience.
It doesn't get any better than that.
No, it doesn't.
See, I want to always be near and dear to them. So I figure if I keep doing really fun things and let them run around and give them ice cream sundaes, what's not to love, right?
You've given them the ultimate playground.
Yeah, I have, but they are. Amazing. But you know what? I think, all kidding aside, I think they are, sort of learning the art of volunteering. And I think that's so important in our young folks these days.
I'm so fortunate to have a wife that's committed to that. Yeah. And outside of just volunteering your time for a good cause and to just be around and be accountable for your community, I think bodes very well, and it helps build a foundation. It builds a sense of pride in your town. Yeah. If you were, I remember going to the senior citizens. I remember being at the soup kitchen. Like it makes you a part of a community, and I think that's the one thing sometimes that we miss out on. Yep. And so when you're able to kind of introduce that to your children earlier in life, it makes them accountable, and I think that's important because that builds a town, that builds a community, and that builds a feel of commitment to your neighbor. And
it also I think builds a sense of sensitivity, and I I think that with the girls coming to the senior center at a young age, this is a unique population. There are some things to be aware of. Some people who use canes, some people are in wheelchairs, some people use walkers, some people can't speak as well or can't hear as well. But you don't know that unless you're actually involved.
I would agree. I would agree tremendously. I've had the good fortune of having my daughters around the office.
Yes.
And so they're able to do things that children would do. They would ask a question like, well, why is that? Or
yes.
Why is that there? And then you can explain it to them. And then sometimes what makes it even really good is there'll be an older person that will be able to explain it to them. Well,
yep.
This is what happened to me, or this is what's going on. And so it makes it not so scary.
Yes.
To a small child, it makes it something that they can understand. And I think sometimes that's the most important part, is allowing them to be exposed so they can understand kind of how life plays out. We're not always young and flexible. We do kind of.
And it humanizes it as opposed to just a diagnosis. You know what I mean? Well, that's somebody who can't hear, so, well, I can't talk to them.
No,
well, there are other ways to communicate. We use our facial expressions, and I use my hands. And, it was interesting when my daughter Grace was young, we used to every Thanksgiving, the night before Thanksgiving, we would serve the meal over at the parish cupboard in West Springfield, because I was on the board of directors for that. And that was a really hard night for them to get volunteers, because it was the night before Thanksgiving. People were away. They were preparing their own meals. And so we did that as a family. And I can remember the year, usually you had a lot of men coming in. And then, of course, it changed as time went on. We saw more women, and then we saw families. And I remember the year, and I always had Grace so that she was interacting with people, not kind of by the stove serving, but, out there interacting. And I remember the conversation that we had on the way home when, there were several families with kids her age at the time, and she was probably about 10. And she had a lot of questions about that.
Yeah.
Why were they there? And, well, where were they living? And how do you go to school? And, well, where are their grandmas and grandpas? And who's helping and who's not? And, as you said, that it really opens up that dialogue. And
Which
I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's important that we have to think about those who are less fortunate than us and try to help them the best we can in the smallest of ways. And I think even being a very young person, you can still contribute to making somebody's life better. And I think that's important. Yeah,
absolutely. And it also, I think for kids, it also helps them to realize how lucky they are because, absolutely we take things for granted. And everybody lives in a nice house and everybody has 2 cars and, everybody has enough food on the table. And because if that's your only frame of reference and, the kids that you hang around with and your friends, that's what's the norm in their house. So I think it kind of opens up the world to this is not the way everybody lives. Yeah. And I think the other thing, and, this goes for adults as well as children, you never think it happens in your community. Westfield is insulated from all of this. Everybody has enough to eat and everybody has a nice place to live and so forth. And, it's easy when you look around our neighborhoods to say, well, everybody's okay. And the reality is that everybody's not okay. And you obviously, as a physician, you see that as well. Yeah. So, but thank you to the girls. Give them a big hug from Aunt Tina.
Absolutely.
All right. So we're going to get into our first break in a minute. But when we come back, what's our topic for the day?
We should definitely talk about pneumonia.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And you know what happened? That stemmed from back in January. We were talking about, it was flu season. Correct. So we were talking about colds versus flu and all that kind of stuff. And somehow we touched on pneumonia. And we said, we need to come back to this because this is a topic unto itself. And interestingly, after that January session that we did on the radio, several seniors at the senior center, I had a staff member with pneumonia, that were diagnosed. So something that we need to talk about, the signs, the symptoms, the treatments, who's at risk, all of those good things. Okay, it is 6:30. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. This one is in honor of National Kick Butts, BUTTS as in Cigarettes Day, and this is Smoking in the Boys Room by Brownsville Station.
How you doing out there? You ever seen they have one of those days where it just seems like everybody's getting on your case from your teacher all the way down to your best girlfriend? Well, I used to have them just about all the time, but I found a way to get out of it. Let me tell you about it. Sitting in the classroom thinking it's a drag, listening to the teacher rap just ain't my bag. Noon bells ring, that's my cue. I'm gonna meet the boys on floor number 2. Smoking in the boys' room. Smoking in the boys' room. Nah, teacher, don't you feel me? Up with your rules. Everybody knows that smoking ain't allowed in school.
programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
It's Tuesday morning from 6 till 8. Wow, it's Tuesday with Bob Plass.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:34. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM, radio for the Westfield masses. It is Wednesday, March 20th. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host. I'm in studio this morning with the chairman of the board, producer Pete Coles. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning.
And our resident primary care physician, Dr. Akinyele Lovelace with Family Medicine over there in the Pink Building on Route 20. Good, the Miami Vice one, right?
Of course.
Get the car. I love it. I love the line. You'll never believe this, but I was flipping around on television probably about 3 weeks ago, and I came across, I was down around the Sundance channel, which is somewhere in the 200s, flipping around right around there, and there was an episode of Miami Vice, and I said, I have to watch 10 minutes of this just to listen to him at some point say, Tubbs, get the car. And he did. Oh my God. It was so funny because when you go back and look at those episodes, like at the time, that was such a big deal. It was the coolest thing going. The guys that introduced us to wearing no socks, with their shoes and the whole deal. And now it's so funny because it just looks so outdated and so rinky-dink. It's hysterical.
I loved every part of it.
It was great.
I looked up to those guys so much.
Well, and it's interesting. My brother-in-law is a retired state trooper now, but he was enamored with the show. Yeah. I mean, he was a New Jersey state trooper. He was doing undercover work with drugs at Newark Airport for years, and Billy was like totally enamored with these two guys, right? Oh, hysterical. All right. But we digress. Okay, topic today is pneumonia. So
pneumonia, I think a lot of times it is one of those entities in the community that we sometimes don't diagnose enough, believe it or not.
Okay.
So what is pneumonia?
What is pneumonia?
It usually comes with a variety of different things, but for all intents and purposes, it's an infection of your lung.
There you go. Thank you.
Right? It's an infection of your lung.
Okay.
And what makes it different for a lot of people a lot of times is it usually presents in a variety of different ways, but typically you're going to have something maybe like a fever, maybe you'll have chills, maybe you even feel like your blood pressure is low or your heart rate is high.
Okay.
Sometimes you even have some difficulty breathing.
Okay.
A lot of times on examination, so if the doctor actually listens to your lungs, he might even hear differences in how air passes through your lungs.
Okay.
So, for example, a lot of times when you take a deep breath, there should be a nice flow of air that comes in and out. But in certain scenarios, if you have an infection in your lung, when the physician or the advanced practitioner listens, they might hear something different. It might sound like a wet paper bag. It might sound like you're going through a wind tunnel, right? So there are changes, and what usually that's implying is that there might be a collection of fluid or infection that's in that part of the lung that the advanced practitioner or the physician is hearing, and so that then gives them cause to want to say, well, wait a minute, something doesn't sound right here. And so the key thing is, well, what causes these pneumonias? And a lot of times it can be viral, right? Number one, but number two, it can be bacterial.
Okay.
And so when you have a bacterial infection, that does require an antibiotic. Mm-hmm. Typically what should happen in a lot of scenarios is if that practitioner suspects that you have a pneumonia, they should be treating you with an antibiotic. And we'll get to the type of antibiotics that you should be getting shortly, but I think that that's the first thing that should be done. The next thing after that is they should consider a chest x-ray in some form or fashion.
Will a chest x-ray, is there a definitive diagnosis for pneumonia?
Absolutely.
I mean,
okay. So if you have a fever and your blood work suggests that you have signs of inflammation, and you have findings on a chest X-ray, you have pneumonia. So that is pretty much how it's the definitive diagnosis.
So the chest X-ray is part of the diagnostic process.
The chest X-ray is part of it. A lot of times, for physicians or advanced practitioners that have been around for a while, they kind of see it. You see it enough where you're like, this isn't just bronchitis. This is, you have a pneumonia. You need to go home and lay down somewhere and not be around anyone else. And so, based on experience, a lot of times, and some of the clinical factors, based on your other risk factors, it's definitely a diagnosis that can be made in the office. But from a definitive standpoint, if we're saying, well, how are you so sure, doctor? Oh, well, you're going to go down for a chest X-ray, and we're going to see what's going on. And typically that will help to make the diagnosis, in addition to sometimes some additional blood work.
Okay. All right. And so now, talk to me about the relationship between like bronchitis or coughing and pneumonia. Because sometimes I've heard people say things like, well, we don't want this to turn into pneumonia. So how does that work? Or is that just a wives' tale?
So it's not so much so for example, if you have someone who has had a persistent cough for over 3 weeks, that is called bronchitis. And so bronchitis is just the inflammation within the actual airway. That's what that is. Okay. And the irritation within the lungs produces a cough because the lungs want to do what they're supposed to do.
Get rid of it,
Get rid of it. Yeah. So either you're gonna expectorate it, cough it out, or it's gonna come up just enough so you can swallow it. So and that's kind of what the lungs should do. We tend to worry about those who have other chronic conditions.
Okay.
And when someone else has an additional chronic condition, that does put them at a higher risk for developing a pneumonia. So that's typically what is implied when we kind of mention that or say that
we
to
don't
a
want
patient.
it to turn into
We don't
pneumonia.
want it to turn into pneumonia because you are at more increased risk for having it. So, for example, if you're someone that has, let's say, for example, you take steroids.
Okay.
Your immune system is suppressed. You are more at risk for this becoming pneumonia. Let's say you have an underlying lung condition, like you have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or COPD or emphysema or even diabetes. Those are additional risk factors that can contribute to you having this initial presentation of what looks like a bronchitis turn into a pneumonia over time based on the fact that your immune system is somewhat impaired. And so that's usually where that conversation goes, where you'd say, well, I don't want this to turn anything different. And a lot of times it's very specific to the other diagnoses that the patient has.
Okay. All right. That makes sense to me now. So it's really kind of a compromised immune system, which is what you would put somebody more at risk.
Correct. Or you already have an underlying lung issue that's going to put you at an increased risk. And so what we do know is if someone has had a persistent cough for an extended period of time and they're laying down more or they're not as active as they once were, it puts them at increased risk for those specific reasons. Okay, now let's talk about that. Let's get into the lying down versus sitting up versus walking around. How does that affect pneumonia, lungs, breathing? What's the deal with that? So what we want to do is we want to make sure that you are not laying in bed for an extended period of time. When that happens, the lung starts to layer on itself. And the reason is the following. We take for granted the fact that when we stand up and take a deep breath, our lungs expand. When we lay flat on our back, I know. I'm sitting up and I'm going, the lungs don't get to expand as much as they need to because you don't get this. That's the lying on the back. Because you're adding gravity to the mix? You're adding gravity, correct. And so now you add fluid to that. Now let's just think of water. Yeah. Think water in a balloon. And so if you were to just have that water and you lay flat, that water can now move to all parts of that balloon. Got it. As opposed to just being at the very bottom. Got it. And so we like to encourage people, if you are someone that has been laying for an extended period of time, what happens is that lung or that balloon doesn't get to expand as much, and so it starts to shrink. And so you want people to get up. You want them to sit up. You want them to, if they can walk around, you want them to walk around, because what you're trying to prevent is the layering of the lung on itself. Gotcha. And so that's why we encourage people to want to get up. What can also happen is just kind of the pressure within the lung cavity itself can also go down. Mm-hmm. And so when that happens, sometimes there are these little bubbles that exist in the lung that we call alveoli. Yeah, they look almost like little grapes. They look like grapes. And what happens is if you're someone that's not standing up and moving and taking good deep breaths, these things also close within themselves.
Yeah.
And so you need that pressure. And so a lot of times you'll find patients who might have gotten discharged from a hospital with a device to just make them inhale or to take a deep breath.
Oh, the breathing thing?
Correct, the breathing thing. Before. And that thing is important because that encourages those little alveoli to open up again.
Yeah.
And we need that to happen for the lungs. And so it is extremely important that, yes, if you don't feel well, to lay down and get your rest, but you can't lay down all day. You can't be in bed 8 hours.
Yeah, flat on your back is not going to work. You can't be flat.
And even sometimes even laying down with the head of the bed elevated for an extended period of time is not really preferable. We really need you to get up out of the bed, maybe get to the chair, and at least just sit up for a little while, because that will help those lungs expand. And when the lungs get the opportunity to expand, they will get the ability to kind of move all those bad, bugs that are in there out just by the fact that you're just taking a good deep breath.
That makes a lot of sense. It was interesting because early on in my career, my very first job was in a small skilled nursing facility down in northern New Jersey. And at that time, I can remember having some residents who really were patients because most of the time they were bedridden. But I can remember the nurses saying, we have to get to the aides, get them up, get them in the chair. They've got to be sitting up. We don't want them to develop pneumonia. I remember thinking at the time, what does one have to do with I didn't get it. It's like, well, what does one have to do with the other? So what? Because I'm thinking, well, they're not coughing. They don't seem to have any other symptoms. But that makes sense to me.
I've noticed too when I have a cold, that I enjoy sleeping in a recliner when I'm a cold.
So do I. I can't lie.
Post-nasal drip and everything like that. It's just you feel better in the morning if you've slept in a recliner or chair, or tilt your bed up if you can, or whatever. But
so the reason why a lot of times people like to sleep in that position is sometimes the lungs themselves are trying to get the oxygen to the good functioning part of the lung. So typically, a lot of times for a good portion of people, the infection could be in there's on the right side of the lung, there's 3 lobes, on the left there's 2, and a lot of times pneumonias tend to happen in the bottom parts of the lung sometimes, or they can happen on the other sides. But what happens is that when you sit up, the air or the good parts of the lung kind of work harder.
Okay.
And so the lungs kind of protect itself. It tries to get oxygen to you so that you can continue to breathe. And so I could understand why people would want to do that a lot of times if they have a lung condition. But once again, the key part is to try to get up and move. It is so important to move. And the reason why I say that is because within our body, we have a system called our lymphatics. And we don't talk about it enough, but this is the system within the body that allows us to move those cells that kind of help our bodies fight infection. And so by moving around, it encourages them to kind of move those helper cells throughout our bodies. It's not it's kind of a passive system. So what I mean by passive system, there's not really a pump that pushes them. The pump is your body moving. And so we take for granted if we're not moving and active, these fighter cells don't get the opportunity to move around within our body, specifically even in our lungs. And so when they don't get to move, they don't get to the source of infection. And so if they don't get there, it takes a slower time for you to kind of recover. And so that's why it's so important when we encourage people to get up and move around. Because
even just walk around the house?
Even just walking around the house, because what that does is that encourages the body to start to heal itself through the lymphatic system.
Wow, that is fascinating. I've never heard of that. And what's that system called? The DART?
It's called your lymphatic system.
Not that one, but what was the other one that you were? The DART something.
Well,
I think he's using a fancy term for the lymphatic system.
All right.
Oh no,
sounds cool.
I was using stuff I shouldn't have said.
Something.
No, that's fine. I missed that because I got the concept, but I hadn't ever heard the term. All right, it is 6:46. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses. So all of my remaining songs are taken from the movie The Big Chill because in honor of William Hurt's birthday today. So this one I did this one just for you, Dr. Lovelace. This is by The Temptations, and it's Ain't Too Proud to Beg.
I know you want to leave me, but I refuse to let you go. If I have to beg, plead for your sympathy, I don't mind, 'cause you mean that much to me. Ain't too proud to beg, and you know it. Please don't leave me, girl. Ain't too proud to plead, baby. Please don't leave me, girl. Now I've heard a crying man is half a man with no sense of pride. But if I have to cry to keep you, I don't mind weeping if it'll keep you by my side. Ain't too proud to beg, sweet darling, please don't leave me, girl. Ain't too proud to plead, baby, baby, please don't leave me, girl. If I have to sleep on your doorstep all night and day just to keep you from walking away, let your friends laugh, even this I can stand, 'cause I wanna keep you any way I can. Ain't too proud to beg, sweet darling, please don't leave me, girl. Ain't too proud to plead, baby, baby, please don't leave me, girl. In the pit of my heart, and each day it grows more and more. I'm not ashamed to come and plead to you, baby. If pleading keeps you from walking out that door, ain't too proud to beg, no. Please don't leave me, girl. Ain't too proud to plead, baby, baby. Please don't leave me, girl.
Underwriting for WSKB's community radio programming is brought to you in part by Dunkin' Donuts, providing new handcrafted espresso drinks and all-day breakfast sandwiches. There's more to love with DD Perks, a loyalty program that's loyal to you. On the web at DunkinDonuts.com and at several locations throughout Westfield, including the Ely Campus Center.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646. Discussions of local politics, events, happenings, and miscellany potpourri. Ken's Den, Tuesday, 8 to 10.
Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is Wednesday, March 20th. It is 6:50. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM, radio for the Westfield masses. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host. I'm in studio this morning with the chairman of the board, our producer, Pete Coles. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning.
And our resident primary care physician with Family Medicine Associates, Dr. Akinyele Lovelace. Good morning again, Dr. Lovelace.
Good morning.
And the topic today is pneumonia. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you is pneumonia contagious?
Yes.
It is.
It is very much so contagious.
So if you suspect that someone may have pneumonia, what's the best sort of protocol for them if they don't live alone? I mean, of course, a lot of the seniors do live alone, but if they don't.
So if I suspect someone has pneumonia, I mean, you would like for them to cover their mouth when they cough.
Just kind of do all the things that you would do when you have a cold, right?
Universal things that you should
wash your hands.
Wash your hands would be ideal.
Okay.
If you have the ability to afford something like a mask of some sort to protect your face, I mean, that would be ideal if you have it. But reasonably speaking, I mean, not everyone has those little masks that you'd wear in a hospital setting, but that would be the ideal thing to do if you suspect that someone is contagious, because yes, for all intents and purposes, we do see what's called community acquired pneumonia. So you kind of have gotten it from the community, and typically it is something that can pass through the air. Someone coughs, someone sneezes. We might share a cup of coffee for whatever reason, and so all of a sudden that's what happens. And there's some very common bacteria that we see that can cause this, and so that's why we like to vaccinate people, because we like to immunize those, and even the community for a certain aspect, because we do know the specific types of pneumonias that are out there that routinely cause, there are a variety of different bacteria, common bacteria that cause pneumonias. And so what we try to do is protect people from that so that they don't get it. There are people who are at more risk. Age plays a role in it. So once you get to a certain age in your life, over 65, you are at a higher risk. If you are someone that smokes cigarettes, if you're someone that drinks a lot of alcohol, if you're someone who has any issues with their lungs in general, We're also finding there are other social reasons. So, if you are homeless, if you are someone who is exposed to environmental toxins, if you work with gasoline, solvents, there are a variety of different things that get in the way or that could make your risk even higher when it comes to pneumonia. And so there are some things that we can take into account and that we should be looking for each other.
Now, what are the treatments for pneumonia? Because, I mean, this is not anything to mess around with. I mean, especially in the old days, they used to call pneumonia the old man's friend because so many people passed away from pneumonia and it was relatively fast.
Yep.
So
and
what
people still do,
yeah,
right? Like pneumonia is still one of the leading causes of
Killed
death.
Jim Henson.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I got to tell you a story about Jim Henson. You know, I met Jim Henson.
Did you?
I did. I got the pleasure to meet Jim Henson when my mother was the director of the Children's Television Workshop for Sesame Street.
Okay.
I know that.
And I got
that.
to meet Jim Henson, and he was a pretty cool guy. Him and Frank Oz. It was so cool because they were all hanging around Sesame Street at the time because that's kind of his.
That's where they started.
That's kind of their whole thing.
Now, were you an adult at that time, or were you a kid? You were just a kid.
I was a kid in the '80s, hanging out, and that was just that was so fascinating. It alerted me a little bit because I was like, wait, Big Bird isn't real? And then,
what's that all about? Wait a minute.
I got it together and met Kermit the Frog, and it was just a fascinating thing. But yes, and the interesting thing, he did die from pneumonia, and he wanted people to celebrate. You know, they wanted to celebrate his death, so he had a huge party, and that was the first time I ever was exposed to like a funeral where it wasn't like a sad thing; it was like a happy thing. So I thought that was interesting. But moving back to pneumonias, yes, they're still a leading cause of mortality in this world. Death, and so the treatment is antibiotics, right? So there are specific antibiotics for certain specific types of pneumonias. By the way,
how many different types of pneumonias are there?
There's a variety of different. We classify them.
Are we talking about a handful, or are we talking about like 30?
We classify them in a variety of different ways.
Okay.
So we classify them based on whether it came from the community or whether it came from a hospital setting or a nursing home setting, right? So there's kind of those two ways from there. Now, there are different bacteria that cause different types of pneumonias that exist out there, and so we do tend to treat them in a variety of different ways. For all intents and purposes, though, we like to break them up just into two. And then after that, our treatment approach varies based on what our exposure risks are. What typically happens is if your physician suspects that you have pneumonia, the treatment typically is not the Z-Pack, right? Like a lot of people get a Z-Pack, and that's typically not the right thing to do for all intents and purposes if you suspect someone has pneumonia. A lot of times it's almost 2 antibiotics, believe it or not, now is what we're starting to see if they're going to use that Z-Pack regimen. Or you can get one type of antibiotic. It's usually something that you have to take once a day, and it's fairly effective. And so we try to continue to treat patients in a duration of 5 to 7, even sometimes 10 days when it comes to treating pneumonia. Now, how do we know which one it actually is? There's a variety of ways in which we can figure that out now. We can swab the person's nose. We can draw blood. And so that kind of gives us an idea as to the type that might be there. Even sometimes if you're bringing up sputum, we can spit. We can even test your spit to make a definitive diagnosis as to which bacteria or viral entity that has caused this pneumonia for people. So we do have a way of treating it. It just really depends on what the bug is and your natural history as to where you were at that exposed you to this type of bug.
And what's the recovery rate for somebody when they've had pneumonia? I mean, I'm going to guess that kind of varies.
It varies tremendously based on your other underlying conditions. You know, you have a lot of times you'll have people that say, well, the doctor diagnosed me with walking pneumonia and I was out walking around the entire time.
I hear that. I do hear that expression.
We hear that a lot. And so it really just depends on the person's other medical issues that they may or may not have, how fit they were prior to getting the infection, whether they have an underlying lung issue, whether they smoke cigarettes, whether they drink large amounts of alcohol. So the recovery time varies depending upon the person's other underlying conditions. But if you're rather well, if you're in shape and well fit, I mean, a couple of days after that, you should be fine.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. All right. And so now, is there any way to sort of prevent all this? So, I mean, is there any way to be proactive?
The best proactive.
What would you say?
The proactive things is always smoke cessation, right?
Yeah.
So we got to kick the butts, right? Like we can go ahead and already make that pitch. And I really hold no qualms. People know if they've come to see me in the office, know how I really don't have I take no excuse for not wanting to quit cigarettes like that day in my office. And so that is the most important part, because you're impairing your lungs. Yeah. Okay, so we've got smoking out of the way. The other issue a lot of times is the pneumonia vaccination, right? We take for granted as adults that we are not around as many people as we once were when we were children. Mm-hmm. Right? When you're in school, you're around a large amounts of other people, right? Other humans.
In confined spaces.
In a confined space. Yep. And
welcome to my world.
Yes, but there's a value to that. The value to that is that you're around a bunch of people that have been vaccinated. Right. And so what happens is even if you haven't had that vaccination just yet, there's kind of what we call herd immunity. So there's we're like a shared organism that just holds that memory of that exposure to that bacteria. And so we're allowed to kind of fight infection. Fast forward, as we get older, sometimes we're more confined to our own home. Maybe
we're more isolated sometimes.
We're more isolated. And so our exposure to others has gone down tremendously. And so we need to remind our immune system about all those memories and all those kids that we interacted with when we were younger, and a la the pneumonia vaccination. Okay. And so we've seen that as being a great way to help prevent infection within a lot of our older adults if we just encourage them to continue to get that. So that's one way. The other thing to do a lot of times is to really just continue to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the most important part.
So let me just ask you something. Are there, is it seasonal? Like the pneumonia vaccination, should you get that at a certain time of the year? Do you see an uptick in pneumonia in New England in certain times of the year, or does it not really matter? Okay.
So you should get your pneumonia vaccination after the age of 65, period. So whenever you turn 65, at some point after 65, you should have got the pneumonia shot. Or if you ever were diagnosed with pneumonia, you should be getting your pneumonia shot no matter what, because your increased risk, if you've gotten pneumonia once, the risk of you getting pneumonia again goes up tremendously.
And is it a one-shot thing, or is it every 10 years?
It should be. It depends on when you got it in your lifetime. So if you got it after the age of 65, you just need it once. But if you got pneumonia prior to the age of 65, you probably should be talking to your physician about how frequent you should be getting that pneumonia shot. Now, we used to give it every 5 years. But we're starting to find out that that's not absolutely necessary. However, it is very specific to the person, especially if they have been admitted to a hospital and have had pneumonia in the past. We definitely want to reevaluate them at approximately every 5 years before the age of 65. Now, to your other question, do we see an uptick in pneumonias at certain parts of the year? And I would typically say yes. We tend to see the association with the flu and pneumonias kind of go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. And so you run into the unfortunate situation where you have a lot of older adults or adults who have underlying lung conditions that then put them at an increased risk, and so they ultimately get the flu, but then over time, if they have a prolonged hospital course, it develops into pneumonia. And so you start to see that, and it's kind of wearing down now, but those cold winter months that we tend to see, even in the fall, you kind of see that you see it coming. Like you see, and a lot of times I remember being in Texas, you could see it coming from California for some apparent reason. It goes from like west to east, and you can kind of predict what's coming. So it's a very fascinating thing. And so we follow those trends. The one thing that I would mention is that it's sometimes very important for us to kind of check blood work also, and to kind of figure out which one it is, because sometimes seasonally it does change specific type of bacteria that people are exposed to.
Okay. Good enough. Well, this was just fascinating. This was really informative, really helpful. Thank you so much, Dr. Akinyele Lovelace.
I love coming.
All right. We will see you again next month.
Absolutely.
It is 7:01. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM, radio for the Westfield Masses. When we come back, we have famous birthdays, we have announcements.
Brand new name for a Westfield institution, which is improving the health of our community every day with quality and compassion. Noble Hospital and Bay State Health. Better together.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
Discussions of local politics, events, happenings, and miscellany potpourri. That's what you'll find on Ken's Den, Tuesdays from 8 till 10.
Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:05. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM, radio for the Westfield masses. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host. It's Wednesday, March 30th. I'm in studio right now with the chairman of the board, producer Pete Coles. Good morning again, Pete.
Good morning.
So as I mentioned before, March 20th is, in addition to being the birthday of William Hurt, it is also the birthday of Holly Hunter, actress born in Conyers, Georgia. She's 61 years old today. Holly Hunter studied drama in college and then moved to New York to pursue acting. She debuted on Broadway in the show Crimes of the Heart, but her big break came in the hit comedy film Raising Arizona. In 1987, Holly Hunter's performance as a lonely, uptight news correspondent in broadcast news earned the actress her first Academy Award nomination. In 1993, she received another Oscar nod for her supporting performance in The Firm, but it was Holly Hunter's portrayal of a mute Scottish woman who immigrates to New Zealand in Jane Campion's The Piano that ultimately won her the award. Did you ever see that film, The Piano?
I don't think so.
And I would definitely classify it as a film, not a movie.
Right.
It's kind of artsy and you kind of, but anyway. So happy 61st birthday to Holly Hunter. It is also the birthday of Pat Riley, basketball coach, born March 20th, 1945 in Rome, New York. He is 74 years old today. As a student at the University of Kentucky, Pat Riley participated in both basketball and football. He played professionally with the San Diego Rockets and the LA Lakers, helping the latter to win the NBA title in 1972 before retiring from play in 1976. Pat Riley returned to the Lakers as an assistant coach in 1980, leading the team to the NBA Finals as head coach in 1983, 1984, and 1986. Riding the sublime talents of superstars Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Riley and his Lakers were crowned NBA champions in 1982, 1985, 1987, and 1988. He later won more NBA championships as a coach and the executive with Miami Heat. So, happy 74th birthday. Thank you for those sound effects, Pete, to basketball coach Pat Riley. Pete is on fire with the sound effects today. It is also the birthday of the late Fred Rogers, television personality and minister. Fred Rogers was Mr. Rogers. Fred Rogers was born March 20th, 1928 in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. He died in 2003 at the age of 74. Fred Rogers was a puppeteer and an ordained Protestant minister who became the host of the television program Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. With a degree in music composition, he wrote 200 songs for the show, including the theme that Pete is playing so beautifully now, It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. He was honored with numerous awards and accolades for his dedication to children via television. The honors included 4 Daytime Emmys, a 1997 Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, and in 2002, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. In 1999, Fred Rogers was inducted into the Television Hall of Fame. Happy birthday to the late Fred Rogers. And you know, my mom was a teacher. My mother was a special ed teacher back in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And it, you know, when the show was popular, and it used to drive us crazy because, you know, he was just but my mom said he was so calming to children. They just loved him. He was just a great And I think for parents back then, that was just and it was interesting because we were talking with Akinyele Lovelace about Sesame Street, and his mom helped had to do with that show, which was a very different flavor than Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And finally, it is Pete. Here we go. It is the birthday. I know.
I love this show.
So do I. Of actor Hal Linden, born March 20th, 1931, in the Bronx, New York. He is 88 years old. Hal Linden was already an esteemed vocalist and clarinetist by the time he reached his teens. He eventually landed a number of roles on Broadway. He won a Tony for his role in The Rothschilds before starring in his greatest claim to fame, the lead character in Barney Miller. Barney Miller debuted in 1974 and would come to stand out for its ethnic diversity. Linden played the role of a Greenwich Village precinct captain. The long-running detective sitcom on ABC ran for 8 seasons, with Hal Linden earning 7 Emmy nods for his work. Over the decades, he has continued to forge a rich career as both a screen actor and live performer in a range of projects. So happy birthday. 88 years old for Hal Linden.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? That's amazing. Oh, yeah, that show was hysterical. Barney
I know.
Miller
It
was absolutely hysterical.
Yeah.
And I refer to that a lot when Mark Carbonell and I are off doing well-being checks on some of the seniors. It's like, I feel like I'm in the sitcom. Really funny. But anyway, happy birthday. He brought us a lot of laughs. So
He did, yeah.
Good stuff. So, yeah, some really popular birthdays today. And I didn't even go. There were more. Spike Lee. I think it's Spike Lee's birthday today, but there were a whole bunch of them. All right, a few things going on at the Senior Center. First of all, just a reminder that this morning at 10 o'clock, we have sign-ups for the next fitness session, fitness class session. Always a popular thing. Get there early to get your... We do it like a bakery. You come in at 8:30 when we open. You get a number. And then you can do whatever. You can leave, or you can have a cup of coffee. You can hang out, to go up and play pool or whatever. And then at 10 o'clock... We group them according to tables. The numbers are according to tables. Like 1 to 6 is table 1, and 7 to 12 is table 2, and so on. And then we bring them up by tables and sign them up. So
there you go.
It's a process, but that is this morning starting at 10 o'clock. So be forewarned. Also, this Tuesday, we have another Whip City Fiber Workshop Drop-In Center at the Senior Center. And I apologize because there was a discrepancy on the dates. I had the right day, which is Tuesday, but I think in the article, I accidentally put Tuesday, March 27th. It's Tuesday, March 26th. So that's coming up 10:30 noon at the Westfield Senior Center in the Creativity Room. Whip City Fiber is there usually about every 3 months or so. We're doing this quarterly. And you can just come in. You don't have to sign up for this. They're going to answer your questions about high-speed internet, new ways of watching television, movies, and sports in Westfield. The Whip City Fiber team is committed to helping you make the change. Join us for a free workshop where we'll walk you through the basics and teach you some of the benefits of using Westfield's fastest internet. So again, that will be they'll be at the Senior Center Tuesday, March 26th next week from 10:30 a.m. to noon. Also coming up on April 7th, which is a Sunday, we're going to have I'm really excited about this program. This is a Sunday afternoon program at 2 o'clock. It is free and open to the public. It's sponsored by a grant from the Westfield Cultural Council. We're going to have the Small Planet Dancers. They're going to be doing a presentation called The Greatest Generation, a tribute to the heroes of World War II. It's a 90-minute program, so it's an hour and a half. It commemorates the history of World War II through dance routines set to big band music, performed in authentic military and 1940s dress. The costumes are so cool. Look at this picture. Cool. It'll be cool just to come and look at the costumes. But the Small Planet Dancers are a great dance troupe. They, they work really hard at this. These are all people. This is not their day job, but they just love what they do. Included in this presentation will be readings about the Tuskegee Airmen, the Navajo Code Talkers, and the 442nd Infantry. They'll be singing familiar songs accompanied by the piano. All veterans are guests of honor for their faithful service to our country. And again, there's no charge. This is a family-friendly event, so feel free to bring the kids as long as they're well behaved. So that's 2 o'clock at the Senior Center on Sunday, April 7th, which seemed like a long time ago when we planned this, and now it's sort of right around the corner because we are heading into that. A reminder that our nurse, courtesy of Bay State Noble Hospital, our nurse Mary Ellen Asher is at the Senior Center on Tuesday and Friday mornings from 9 a.m. to noon. We don't see much of Mary Ellen anymore hanging around the lobby because she usually has a waiting line.
Busy.
Yeah, she's been super busy. I said that to her last week. I said, I didn't even realize you were here. She said, walked in at 9 o'clock, had people waiting for me, and I was busy until 12 noon when I left. So
there you go.
Thank you to Ron Bryan and the good folks at Bay State Noble Hospital, because Mary Ellen is their gift to us, and that is a community service that the hospital runs. They figure the parking is good at the Senior Center. We have a captive audience over there, and we really appreciate it. So that's Tuesday and Friday mornings, and it's just working out beautifully. Westfield's 350th. You know, if you're not aware of the fact that the city is celebrating its 350th, so their next in the lecture series, the next lecture is next Wednesday, March 27th. It's Reverend Edward Taylor's Westfield, the poet, pastor, and his congregation from 1671 to 1721.
I think there's one tomorrow. Tonight. I think that's the rescheduled Indian one.
Or what about the schoolhouse? I'm like
the schoolhouse has already been done.
Okay, that's
that
done.
was last week.
Okay, that's done. All right, so there's you'll have to look up, Pete, because I don't have that
Give
one
me
on
one
my
second.
Okay, but we can talk about next.
I think that was the one that was
Wednesday.
rescheduled because of
snow or ice or
yes.
sickness. Or...
So Native Americans of Westfield, Mass. is tonight.
Okay, and where is that one?
Gail White Usher is your speaker. It's going to be at Dever Stage at 6:30 tonight.
Here on the campus of Westfield State University. Just so for those who don't know, this has been a super popular series. So one tonight and one next Wednesday on
Correct.
the 27th.
The 27th will be back at First
Congregational Church.
That's the one I'm covering. Yeah.
And they start. What time, Pete?
6:30.
6:30. Okay. Are they? Is that universal? They all start at 6:30.
Yes.
Is that a universal thing going on there? Okay. And then I know that Jay and Bob were talking about this on Bob's show, but we have Chicago Total Access coming to the Westfield Technical Academy. Total Access is it's a tribute band to the band Chicago. Should be great. And wait, the one thing that I didn't hear Jay mention is, do we know how to get tickets for that? Because I need to get my tickets.
You can get them at Rockies or on purplepass.com.
Okay, but you can actually get them right here, because I know some people prefer not to do it online. Some people can't do it online.
Right.
So so we can get them at Rockies.
Yes, and Purple Pass is same thing. It's general admission, so seats are seats.
Well, you know what I found when we went to the
we like to fill the auditorium because it's a good cause.
Oh yeah, it's for the police auxiliary, Westfield Police Auxiliary,
because they have to buy their own gear, uniforms, everything. So
perfect. So let's support that, and that should be great. And that's
going to be a great show too.
It is going to be a great show. And listen, if you really want to make a night of it, here's the thing. I don't have my flyer on this yet, but Jen Gruska keeps sending me emails about the wine tasting. For Bay State Health Foundation, which is the same night. It's over at Toccoa. But here's what I'm going to do. You can actually, the wine tasting starts a little earlier. You can do both. So we're going to go, it's going to be date night with Gary. So we're going to go do some wine tasting stuff over there at Toccoa, and then we're going to scoot over for the concert. And
there'll also be, I know that the culinary program will be offering baked goods as a little snack.
Oh, that's
so you
perfect.
can buy that right outside the
That is perfect. Couple of other announcements before we take a break and bring our guests on. The historic Westfield 350th anniversary quilt raffle is going on, and the quilt right now, which is a big quilt that the Peacemakers quilting group from the Senior Center actually designed and created this. It's gorgeous. This gorgeous quilt. It's on display at the Senior Center through the rest of the month of March, and then they're moving out, I think, to City Hall for April and May. But we are selling raffle tickets. Wherever it is at the time is who's selling raffle tickets. So we're selling the raffle tickets at the Senior Center. If you'd like to see what it looks like, you can't miss it. Walk in the front door and look straight ahead. We have it up on our bookshelf in the Fireside Lounge, and it's beautiful. So get your raffle tickets for that. That's a fundraiser for the 350th. I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to skip that one. Okay, it is 7:18. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. Let's see, my song. Oh, this was a great song from the Big Chill, Three Dog Night. It's Joy to the World. When we come back, we have our guest from Governor Center. We will be right back.
for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise, all of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldstate.bncollege.com.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646. Friday mornings is something different on 89.5 FM. It's JP's Talk About Town.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from the campus of Westfield State University. This is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:23. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM, radio for the Westfield masses. It is Wednesday, March 20th. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host. I'm in studio this morning with the chairman of the board, producer Pete Coles. Good morning again, Pete.
Good morning.
And we are welcoming our guests for the second hour from Governor Center. So we have Melinda Monastersky, administrator, and Jennifer Koblosh, social worker. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for coming in. I don't think I've had anybody from Governor Center here on my stint yet, which is almost 5 years and counting. Pete, we're coming up to our 5-year anniversary in June. I feel like we need to do something. I have to kind of. I would love to get Dan Kanapik back in here.
Why don't we do it at the senior center?
Oh, we could do it at the senior center. All right. Well, we'll talk. We'll make plans.
Yes.
We'll make plans during the break. Melinda, let's start. I'm going to start with you. So typically, when I have new guests on that have not been on the show before, we like to just kind of get a feel for who you are and a little bit about your background and how you ended up where you are. Because as I usually say to my guests, I'm sure that when you were in third grade and your teacher said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" you didn't say a nursing home administrator, and you probably didn't say a nursing home social worker. Maybe, but that's probably not real likely. So Melinda, let's talk about you. Where are you from originally? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? We want the dirt.
Okay. So originally I'm from Wallingford, Connecticut.
Okay.
So that is where I was born and raised, and I went to Southern Connecticut State University. And actually, when I was a little girl, what I ultimately wanted to be was a nurse. So I'm not too far.
You're not
off.
that far. Yeah,
No.
you're not that far from it.
No.
Then. There you go.
And I really started with my passion when I was 16. I started off as a CNA.
Which is okay. Now
A
here's the
certified
thing.
nursing assistant.
Yes, I know because I know that, but the teachers and the medical profession, you are wonderful at acronyms, and so just for our listeners, so you started out as a certified nurse's aide. Okay.
Yes, and I absolutely loved every aspect of it.
Now, where were you when you started as a nurse's aide? What type of facility were you in?
So it was a continuous care facility. So ultimately what that means is we had a skilled nursing facility, and that we had independent living and assisted living.
Yep.
So I started off in the skilled nursing portion of the facility, and then I was promoted to the assisted living portion. And I actually, because at that point I was in college when I got promoted, and I opened up a dementia unit in the assisted living. So it was a really amazing experience because it was the perfect storm. I was a CNA, I was going to school for rec therapy, and I had a lot of experience with the population that has a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease or related dementia. So my boss said to me, I have really no clue what I'm doing, so I'm going to give this to you. And good luck, basically.
Yeah, and have fun with that.
Yes, but it was an amazing experience because I was in college and I'm incredibly driven. So I was working full-time while I was in college, and we opened up this unit, and I was able to really learn so many aspects of the position, how to manage people, how to take care of residents, families, peers, and it was
I have to say, as an overachiever myself, I'm blown away that all of that happened at such a young age. I mean, it's one thing to have that happen later in your career, but it's another thing to have that happen, sort of when you're in your college years. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it just it was the perfect storm.
Right place, right time.
Yes, I had an incredibly supportive supervisor at the time, and he really entrusted me that I was going to be able to figure it out, and I did.
How many people? I'm just curious, but about how big was the dementia unit?
It was 30 beds. It was 30 beds. So
That's a significant number.
No big deal.
I mean, I'm thinking she's going to say 10 to start with, and we grew. Wow, that's amazing. So how long did you stay on that job?
So from when I started, I was 16, and then I ended up leaving about 7 years later. So that was towards the tail end of college because I really wanted to get more experience in the clinical setting because in assisted living, it's completely different than skilled nursing care. And because I spent only a few years in this skilled setting, I wanted to be able to grow stronger clinically.
Now, what did you actually study in for your undergraduate program?
Rec therapy.
Oh, it was rec therapy. Okay, all right. And so where did you move on from that facility? Where did you go after that?
So after that, I wanted to get more experience in the clinical setting. So I went to Hampton Healthcare.
Okay.
Which was another skilled nursing facility. And at that point, they were about to have their grand opening for their skilled dementia unit that they were opening up, and that was a large unit. That was about 50 beds. So I stayed there for about 8 months because then I had to finish my internship at the Institute of Living in Hartford.
Oh, sure, which is a great area.
Was.
Yeah, that would have been a great experience.
And I did adult psychiatry, the inpatient unit, and I loved it, but I ultimately ended up missing the geriatric population, the older adult. So once I finished up my internship there, I ended up moving up to Western Massachusetts.
So was it a job that brought you to Western Massachusetts, or
it actually was my husband,
or a relationship?
Yeah,
that was that was like the other one, job or relationship. Where are we going here? Okay. And so when you moved up to Western Mass, then what? So where did the career go from there?
So I started off as a recreation director for Genesis Healthcare, and I stayed there for about 7 to 8 years. I started off as the recreation director, and then I was promoted to the dementia specialist for the Heritage Hall campus. And then I realized I really wanted to be a nursing home administrator. I felt that, where my career was going, as much as I loved running Alzheimer's units and dementia units, I felt that there wasn't a lot of growth at that point, that I wanted to do more. And I felt that the impact that I could have with the population, it was only specifically to my unit.
Yes.
And that I really wanted to drive culture change, and that I felt that the people we served deserved better, and that I knew if I went for the nursing home administrator route, that would be my building. I could really drive the culture change that I want, and I could engage the community in a different aspect. So I ended up doing my administrator in training with Michelle Garrity, who worked for Genesis, who now works for Care One, and she was very inspiring because I looked to her because she was a mother, she was a wife, and she is an amazing nursing home administrator. So those are all three really important aspects of my life. So I ended up working with her as my AIT, which is my administrator in training. And then after that, I went to this company, which is Aramid, and now I'm a nursing home administrator.
Now, is this your first building, Governor Center?
It is.
As an administrator?
It is.
And how long have you been there, Melinda?
Since December.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. I'm not even sure where to go from there, Pete. I think that's just here's what I love about it. I've got a extensive background. I too worked for Heritage. I think everybody who's ever sat in the seat that has anything to do with
everybody worked for Genesis
at one point in your career. And I actually worked there right after Genesis took over. That was many moons ago. But what I think that's really fascinating about this story, and what impresses me, is I'm always impressed when a nursing home administrator somewhere along the line started out as a certified nurse's aide, or at least had that experience, whether they started that way or not. I think in your case, having done recreational therapy, really gives you a nice background for being now in charge, as you said, of your own building, setting the tone, because it's always top down. It's you can have a phenomenal staff, but if the person at the top isn't letting that phenomenal staff do what they can do best, you've got this talent, but it's not really going anywhere. So
definitely. And I always tell the staff that I've walked in their shoes. I've worked in many different departments, and that our job is incredibly challenging. but I know we're capable of doing it. Yeah. And oftentimes nursing home administrators are viewed as unrelatable. Yeah. And that is nothing that I would ever want to be viewed as. Yeah. I want the staff to know that I partner with them, that no matter how difficult our job can be, that I'm here with them, that it's not going to be, well, this is what you have to fix.
Right.
It's we have to move forward. We have to do this. It never should be I focused. It always should be we. We're a team.
All right, and we are going to meet another member of that team in just a minute. We're going to take a short break now. My theme is the songs from The Big Chill, so in honor of William Hurt's birthday, this one is Good Lovin' by the Rascals. When we come back, we're going to talk to Jennifer Koblosh, the social worker at Governor Center.
1, 2, 3, good love. Good love. Good love. Good love. What I had, I said, doctor, Mr. MP, doctor, now can you tell me what's ailing me, doctor? He said, yeah, 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 yeah. Indeed, all I really need, good love. Now give me that good, good love, good love. All I need is love, good love, good loving, baby, good love. Now, honey, please, squeeze me tight. Don't you want your baby to be alright? Be alright. I said, baby, like it's for sure. It's for sure. I got the fever, yeah. You got the cure. Got the cure. Everybody, yeah, 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 yeah. Indeed. All I really need is love. Now come on, now give me that love. Good love. All I need is love. Good love. Good loving, baby. Good love.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Westfield Bank. For more than 160 years, Westfield Bank has been an important community presence and commercial leader in the Pioneer Valley. With convenient full banking services in Westfield, West Springfield, East Longmeadow, Agawam, Feeding Hills, Springfield, Southwick, as well as Enfield and Granby, Connecticut, visit us on the web at westfieldbank.org. We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646. Friday mornings is something different on 89.5 FM. It's JP's Talk About Town.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University. This is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:36. You're listening to WSKB, 89.5 FM, radio for the Westfield masses. It is Wednesday, March 20th. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host. I'm in studio this morning with our producer, chairman of the board, Pete Coles. Good morning again, Pete.
Good morning.
And we have two guests this morning from Governor Center. We have, Melinda Monastersky, I got to get this right, and Jennifer Koblosh. Melinda is the administrator. We just got a little bit of her background. And Jennifer is the social worker. So, Jennifer, you're up. So it's your turn. So how did you end up where you are? Kind of walk us through your journey.
Sure. Good morning, Tina.
Good morning.
So I am from Enfield, Connecticut, born and raised there. I started my educational journey at Central Connecticut State University.
Yeah.
And I want to say hello to all my alumni, friends, and also go Blue Devils.
There you go, little shout out there.
I love the campus there. So basically, when I graduated from college, I was working in the New Britain area.
Now, what did you study when you were in school?
So I studied psychology.
Okay.
With a minor in English, believe it or not, because I love English.
And you can never go wrong with an English degree. That's my personal little shout out there.
Absolutely. So I started working in New Britain, Connecticut at a facility called Klimberg Family Care Center, which was a residential inpatient facility with adolescents. My focus at that time was that I was going to work with the young kids that were about age 16 and 17.
Yep.
And I did that for a couple of years. But shortly thereafter, I was working in a rest home setting. It was an ICF facility. And
intermediate care facility back in the day.
And at that time, a lot of the state hospitals had been closing, in particular Norwich State Hospital. So the focus was really mainstreaming that adult population into more community settings.
So let's, for our listeners' benefit, I know what you're talking about, but let's just talk about who were the residents of the state hospitals.
So there was a combination of individuals with chronic mental health disorders and also developmental disabilities.
Kind of thrown in together.
And a lot of those individuals had been in that state system from a very young age.
Yep.
And so the trend in the 50s and the early 60s was really to institutionalize people. Luckily now, in my career, the focus has been keeping people in the community and providing lots of outreach and community support systems so people are able to live independently with some supervision and some help.
Okay. And so now, so how did you end up in this journey to Governor Center? How did that, and how long have you been there?
So I have been at the Governor Center for 10 months. I'm a licensed social worker in Massachusetts. I'm pretty much still a Connecticut girl, but I am transitioning to Mass. And I worked in Agawam for a year, and now I've been here with the folks at Governor Center, which I have to tell you has been an amazing experience for me.
Really?
I am still learning new things, even after 30 years of being a social worker.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, part of it, I think, is that you just continue to learn, sort of new things every day. And for me, it's every time I think I've seen it all. I haven't. Some, really interesting, complicated, intricate case will get, kind of put in my lap. So let's talk, now that we've sort of figured out how you both got to where you are, but both of you have been there for a relatively short period of time, less than a year. So tell us a little bit about Governor Center. So this is the facility for those listeners who kind of get all the skilled nursing facilities confused. This is the one on Broad Street.
Yes.
Okay. And so, well, first of all, how many beds do you have? Let's start there.
We have 100 beds.
Okay. Now, is that considered big, small, intermediate? What is that considered in nursing home lingo?
I would say that it's a medium-sized building.
Okay. All right. I would agree with that. Just one building?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And so what kinds of services? Now, Governor Center is considered a SNF, right? A skilled nursing facility.
Yes.
All right. So let's start there. For those who don't know what that means, Melinda as administrator, what does that mean if you're a skilled nursing facility?
So we provide care for individuals who might need skilled care, which means that they require higher levels of care that can't be supported necessarily in the community.
Okay.
So under our 100 beds, they're supported, they're Medicaid certified, and they're also Medicare certified.
Okay.
So you have to have certifications for those. We provide rehab. We have 17 private rooms to support that rehab population that might come to us from a local hospital, whether it's Noble right here in Westfield, Bay State, Cooley Dickinson, Holyoke Hospital. Those are some of the hospitals that feed us. And then we have rehab, long-term care. So if somebody isn't able to be supported out in the community and their family isn't able to take care of them anymore, they could come to us for long-term care. And we have 60 beds for long-term care. and then we have 40 beds for rehab. And we also have respite services, which a lot of people forget about. So if you have Medicaid out in the community, and maybe you are taking care of, mom has Medicaid out in the community.
Yep.
And you're taking care of mom and you're going on vacation, or maybe you have an upcoming surgery yourself, you can admit mom to us for respite services where she could stay with us for up to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we could provide care for her, so you can go on that vacation, you can have the surgery that you need and know that mom's in a safe place and all of her needs are being met.
You know, and I just want to address that respite piece, Melinda, because I run a support group at the senior center, and I remember a few years ago, I have a few folks in that support group that are caregiving for spouses, and you know that is a very, very challenging group that is often forgotten. We talk a lot about the sandwich generation and
Yes.
children being caregivers for their parents, but spouses actually do most of the caregiving, and you know it's relentless for them. And I had one woman who started to figure out that she needed to use the respite services of the local skilled nursing facilities, not because she was going on vacation, not because she was having surgery, just to recharge her battery. So she would do that about twice a year for a week or two. And during that time period, you know, she would have maybe a relative visit from out of state. So they could go out to dinner together. They could go to a show together. She could go to church, which was huge for her, but it was becoming more and more problematic for her to do that with trying to, you know, she couldn't leave her husband alone and so forth. So I think that whole respite thing, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that, first of all, I think a lot of people don't know that that's even available.
They don't.
You know what I mean? Okay. So, and now let's talk a little bit about rehab. When you say you have so many beds available for rehab, what kind of rehab are we talking about?
So we don't necessarily have a specialty unit. We take care of a variety of different diagnoses that come onto the unit for rehab. So you might have cardiac issues. Maybe you fell and broke a hip. A variety of different issues, even RSV. Maybe you're decompensated because you've had RSV or the flu and you need to strengthen.
Okay.
So you come to us for some strengthening, and then depending on your insurance, the average stay for somebody that might have, say, Tufts Insurance is the insurance that we cover about 14 days.
Okay. So we're talking about a 2-week period. Now, what about if somebody has a planned surgery? Because I've discovered at the senior center, I would say over the last couple of years, we have a lot more people that have scheduled surgeries. They're going to have a knee replacement. They're going to have a shoulder replacement. They're going to have a hip replacement. But it's not because they fell and broke anything. It's because of, just a long-term standing problem. Can they make arrangements ahead of time to, you know, I know I'm going to be hospitalized for this surgery. They say I'm going to be in for, 2 days or whatever it is. And then can they make arrangements to say, well, I want to go to Governor's Center? Can they do that?
Yes, and we actually encourage them to come take a tour and to look at all the local skilled nursing facilities and decide what is the best fit for you. And then what we can do is we can communicate with the hospital and the insurance that this person is going for their scheduled surgery at this time. And then once their surgery is done, say if they stay for 1 or 2 days, then they're going to be discharged from the hospital and come straight to us.
Gotcha. Okay.
And we work really hard to make sure that we accommodate their needs, whatever those needs might be.
Now, you mentioned some private rooms. Are all of the private rooms associated with people in getting rehab, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
We have majority of our rooms on the rehab unit, but we do have rooms upstairs on our long-term care unit that are private rooms as well.
Okay. Good enough. All right, it is 7:46. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses. My guests this morning are Melinda Monastersky and Jennifer Koblosh, administrator and social worker with Governor Center. We're going to take our last quarter-hour break, and we have, I second that emotion, by Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. This is from The Big Chill, and we will be back. We're going to talk a little bit about mental health issues and your relationship with Forum House, so I think you've got some interesting stuff going on there.
And a taste of honey's worse than none at all. Oh, little girl, in that case I don't want no part. I do believe that that would only break my heart. Oh, but if you feel like loving me, if you got the notion, I second that emotion. Say, if you feel like giving me a lifetime of devotion, I second that emotion. Oh, maybe you think that love would tie you down, and you don't have the time to hang around. Or maybe you think that love will make fools, and so it makes you wise to break the rules. Oh, little girl, in that case I don't want no part. I do believe that that would only break my heart. Oh, but if you feel like loving me, if you got the notion, I second that emotion. Say, if you feel like giving me a lifetime of devotion, I second that emotion. Oh, little girl, in that case I don't want no part. I do believe that that would only break my heart. Oh, but if you feel like loving me, if you got the notion, I second that emotion. Say, if you feel like giving me a lifetime of devotion, I second that emotion. Oh, little girl, I second that emotion. Ooh, little girl, I second that emotion.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Comcast and Xfinity.com, offering Xfinity TV, Internet, home phone, and home security services. Information on all that Xfinity has to offer in the Westfield area is available online at Xfinity.com.
Underwriting for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield, serving the youth of the Whip City and surrounding communities since 1969. For more information on the Great Futures Club for ages 3 to 5, happening weekdays, and the Club Teen Center for ages 11 and older, weekdays from 6:30 till 8 p.m., go online at bcgwestfield.org or visit the club at 28 West Silver Street. The Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield. Great futures start here. We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
Wednesday mornings from 6 till 8, it's Tina Gorman with Wake Up Wednesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:50. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. It is Wednesday, March 20th. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host. I'm in studio this morning with the chairman of the board, producer Pete Coles, with the green Pete O'Coles with his green Kelly green hair. Good morning again, Pete.
Good morning.
And my guests this morning, we have two folks from Governor Center. We have the administrator, Melinda Monastersky. I was so good with that, and now I'm stumbling. And Jennifer Koblosh, who's the social worker. And Jen, I want to talk to you a little bit about, you've got a strong background in mental health issues. And Governor Center, which I learned just through Melinda, is now sort of partnering with Forum House. So tell us about that partnership and what's Governor Center doing in terms of working with folks with mental health issues.
Sure, Tina. So one of the things that we've done is that we have partnered with the Forum House, and they are our local neighbors on Broad Street. Forum House is a wonderful place where people with mental health issues can go to a day leisure, and vocational program there.
Okay.
They have a variety of services and resources available for young adults, and I have to thank them personally for everything that they have done for several of our residents. The program there is very welcoming. It is very non-judgmental, and the focus is really bringing out the best in people and helping them with social skills, vocational training, and just a really comfortable place where people can be together and socialize.
Okay. And all age groups at Farmhouse?
So in my experience, it has been young adults, and there are some seniors. Obviously, we have some residents that are very involved there as well. People can have jobs there. We have residents that actually work in the kitchen. They have individuals that answer the phones, do clerical. They have a wonderful resource library. They have a medium room. They have absolutely beautiful artwork that their clients participate in with art therapy. And it's just really set up to keep people very active and very independent.
And how did you how does Governor Center, tell us about that relationship?
So we were blessed that they were our neighbors, and
they're right across the street, right?
Literally, you can throw a rock.
Yeah.
And one of our residents is a retired chef.
Okay.
And he had went over there to cook, and that's his passion.
Okay.
And so I have to thank him for that. So it just kind of grew as a relationship, and now we have several clients that Monday through Friday participate with their leisure program, and it just really has continued to develop in the last year.
So let me ask you this, and I'm going to throw this question out to both of you. Do you have residents at Governor Center who have longstanding mental health issues now, dovetail on top of that, maybe some dementia issues as well?
So at the Governor Center, we have a very diverse population. And what I'd like to say as far as just nationally, having been involved with NAMI, which is NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness, the statistics really are that 23% of our adult population struggle with some mental health issues from time to time. Some people might just have an adjustment disorder where they've went through a life-altering event.
Sure.
And others may have more chronic depression. And then with the geriatric psych population with dementia, we also have resources and programs for that population as well at the Governor Center.
Yeah. I think that, I think the whole area of mental health issues has really changed, and over the last bunch of years. I mean, you mentioned earlier about the whole deinstitutionalization movement and state mental hospitals, and they were really catch-alls for a lot of people. I mean, it was people with mental health issues, but it was also people who there was just like no other place for them to go. Because I can remember doing some volunteer work back in the day, back in my college days, in a extremely large state mental hospital in Virginia. And, when I asked the staff about the background of certain folks, I mean, there were cases where it was like, well, there was, the family was poor. There was no other place to put this child. And so they put her in this hospital. She wasn't, she didn't have any cognitive issue. She didn't start with any. And, but, over the course of 60 or 70 years that some of these people were in there, it was just amazing. And then we kind of went through that period of where, we went through deinstitutionalization, but the problem with that was they didn't really have the services and the support systems and the group, the idea was we're going to put people in group homes, but you can't, take 2,000 people out of a state hospital and, put them in 6 group homes. So, but I think we're sort of playing catch up now. I think we're getting to where we need to be. But I was just curious about your experience with sort of that elderly population with, with some mental health issues as what you're nodding, Melinda. So
yeah, our clientele,
jump in.
Even over the past 10 years, has really changed in the skilled nursing facilities. Even 15, 20 years ago, the clientele that we were getting, because assisted living wasn't as dominant at the time and there wasn't as many resources out in the community.
Correct.
That for individuals who needed some extra support, who maybe had some mild cognitive impairment or needed some general assistance maybe with med management or incontinence care, that they came to into the skilled nursing facilities.
Yes.
Nowadays, people are staying at home for much, much longer.
Yep.
And there's so many community resources between assisted livings, home health care, CCA, which is an insurance for managed Medicaid.
Yep.
They provide so much additional support that those individuals are staying out of skilled nursing facilities. So the individuals that are coming to us are a lot sicker
Yep.
and a lot more complicated than they previously were.
Yes.
So with that, we're seeing an increase in complex diagnoses, mental health disorders,
Yep.
more severe behaviors with advanced dementia. So we really have had to change the resources
Yes.
and the avenues that
Yep.
we were focusing on to better support. And that's really how we have changed our focus to better support individuals with mental health issues, because there was such a huge need that people oftentimes just focus on somebody's physical assistance that they need. But there's so much more to a person than just their physical disabilities.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, if you look at the history of things, and I can tell you, because I started in the field in the 1970s, and at that time, if somebody had, physical problems, somebody had a stroke, your options, these were your options. It was either stay at home and have your family move in with you, move in with your family, or go to a nursing home. That was it. My first nursing home job as a social worker in a skilled nursing facility, it was a small facility in New Jersey. In 2 years, I discharged 2 people home. That was it. When you went to a skilled nursing facility, that was your last stop. And I had residents that had been there for 10 years. And you're right, because the problem was there was no assisted living, there was no adult day health care or
Correct.
social day care, and home care was very, very limited. You had a couple of visiting nurse associations. You didn't have a bunch of home health agencies. So over the course of my now sort of 40-year career, I've seen those changes. I think a lot of that had to do with the sandwich generation, with the children, and especially, believe it or not, there was a big movement in Connecticut among executives in the insurance companies who were trying to take care of their parents and saying, well, my mother doesn't really need a skilled nursing home or a nursing home, but I can't take her in my house, and and we're not moving in with her. That's it? Like, what are my other options? And that was sort of the beginning of the assisted living movement, at least on the East Coast, to say, there's got to be something in between where people can be supported, but they don't need all of this care. So I think you're right in terms of the nursing home industry. That put you in a place now where you've got, as you said, more complicated cases, and that's the way it should be. I mean, it really should be that this is, this is sort of the place for, people who really do need skilled care, and meaning, people with professional degrees, whether it's rehab, social work, administration, nursing, whatever, who can, kind of deal with the more complicated cases and care for these people. So kudos. And just as we finish, because we're running out of time here, but I know that Governor Center has been really super involved in the community, especially since Roxanne Cotton jumped in on board a few years ago. So what's in the pipeline? I know you have a community breakfast today, right?
We do.
You want to tell us just briefly about the community breakfast? You do those every month.
We do. So Mary Powers, who's an attorney in West Springfield, is coming in and to present on elder law, and she's absolutely amazing.
She's
I'm very
awesome.
excited.
She's a good friend of mine.
Oh,
we've actually done
Okay.
presentations together. She's actually my personal attorney. So yeah, Mary and I go way back.
Yes,
very knowledgeable.
Very, and we have partnered together when I worked for the Heritage Campus.
Yep.
And when we made Agawam dementia friendly, she really partnered with us to do some presentations at the library. So we're very excited to have her back.
Yeah.
So we have community breakfasts once a month. We have a community event for families, an Easter egg hunt with the Easter Bunny.
Yeah, that's coming up, right?
Yes.
When is that? Do you have a date on that?
April 7th.
Okay,
so
perfect.
it's a Sunday at 9:30 in the morning.
Yes.
So people are able to call us, RSVP, come to our center, and just have a fun day together with their families.
There've also been I think that this was before you came on board, Melinda, but they've done some physical renovations to the building as well, to Governor Center, over the years, certainly over the years that I've been here in Westfield. So over the last 10 or so years, I know they've done some renovations. So good stuff. Roxana's doing some great work over there. And thank you to Governor Center, because you also supply our bingo snack once a month. So we're appreciative. And Roxana's hysterical because, you know, we do Friday afternoon bingo, and we rotate with the assisted living and some of the skilled nursing facilities who provide the bingo snack. But Roxanne always, you know, she sets the bar pretty high because, you know, if it's seasonal, she'll figure out some way to decorate them, and and you know what, our folks appreciate that. We appreciate the extra time and effort that you make. So Melinda Monastersky and Jennifer Koblosh from Governor's Center, thank you so much for coming in to the Wake Up Wednesday show. If people have questions or they want to get in touch with you, can you give us a phone number for the Governor's Center so that they could call?
Sure. I can actually give them my direct cell phone number. I feel that's an easy way for people to contact us, which is 413-388-2594.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. It is 8:02. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. And Joe Didi's coming up, Pete?
Yep.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Support for the community.